is assigned a color. The same with moods, right? Remember the mood ring? When
Oh
your
yeah.
mood change, the color change?
Right.
Right, because they all have a energy signature. Some stones, like the one they make the real moon rings out of, not these fake ones that they use paper that's designed to do what the stone do. But the real stone, people would carry them around to monitor their own mood so that they
Mhm.
can try to maintain a certain frequency.
Right. Right.
And then they turned them into a novelty, exploiting our culture because we naturally drawn to things that's from our old cultures. They find ways to give us a mimic, an
Mhm.
artificial replica of it, and then our genetic memory will be drawn to it. It's the same with the Bible. That's why the Bible is rewritten and scrambled up to confuse us because the genetic memory remembers the holy drama.
Explain.
Everybody, everybody
Explain.
that's earthborn, the story of Osiris and Isis has a different story around the world, but it's the same story. It's called the holy drama,
Mhm.
right? And it's the story of the father falling to the uncle and the son of the father coming back to take the rulership back from the uncle,
Okay.
right? In Sumeria, it's the story of Ninigazita, Enki, and Enlil, right? Over
Mhm.
here, it's the great father's sky and Mother Earth, right? And then they produce the Hayoka, a high priest, high chief, right? So the story is the same. It's just played out differently in different cultures to suit the underlying genetic memory of the people local to the area, right? So when they tell us these stories, our genetic memories say this is the truth, even if it's scrambled up. Your genes, your DNA program will unscramble the story subconsciously. So you have to be able to read your own subconscious mind in order to bring the truth of the matter to conscious awareness. They tell you not to do introspection because the idle mind is the devil's workshop. But who is the devil? Devil mean enemy, adversary, opponent. So if it's you versus you, that's the best place to be,
Mhm.
in your head. But you always hear people say, get out your head. You all thinking too much. There's no such thing as thinking too much, because how do you learn how to think? By thinking, by examining your thought process. You
True.
learn how to think. They took critical thinking and practical problem solving that was hardwired into all of our education out of the educational curriculum. So now there's no critical thinking, practical problem solving. You have to ask for that separately. You have to enroll your child into K through 12 critical thinking, practical problem solving, and they're going to try to tell us it don't exist. But you can go to Amazon, type in critical thinking K through 12, and the whole books will come up.
Oh wow.
But it don't exist. Those classes are only privy to the people in the higher economic echelon based off the three-tier German school philosophy: Richelin, Volschulin, academia. Real school, false school, and academia. Academia is where the ones that they want to rule is taught.
Mm.
Real schooling is the ones that they want to mediate and govern over the rest of the masses. That's where they taught. And Volschulin is where everybody else is taught, which sounds like false schooling, which is artificial education.
Wow. Hmm. So from a standpoint of, do you think that the paradigm of so-called education as we've known it up until we got to the COVID time of COVID, where, you know, many parents, you know, children were home for what, a year or so, I felt like there was a shift in that paradigm. I mean, anybody trying to say start a school or whatever and keep it in a certain, and I'm not talking about anybody, but in particular, but I feel like, you know, sending your children to school now is probably been exposed as not as advantageous to their knowledge base as we thought it was. I mean, it's the steps you have to take in order to get these certifications and degrees, but does it really give the child the erudition that they need? I mean, it was when we were doing home economics and what do you call it, carpentry and auto mechanics. I'm not no things, but things like that, where children could come out of school, you know, hair, you know, beautician. They could come out of school and be, if they wanted, they could go into some type of a job if they wanted to. But now they get a whole bunch of gender twisting, bending. They get, you know, they get a lot of things. I forgot what they're calling that thing, but they're getting a lot of stuff that's basically about a bunch of propaganda.
It's all social engineering.
Well, yeah, and it's not preparing them, and so they still feel like they have to go somewhere for higher education. And my question is it really higher education, or is it just a way to get more of the siphon the finances out of the people and still never give them anything, you know, no value for the, you know, what they put into it? Because at the end of it, what do they come out with? A large, you know, a bill that they can never pay off, and more than likely they might end up working in, you know, a fast food restaurant than they will in the profession of which they call themselves being trained or at a higher level. So do you see that ending? Do you see that there being a paradigm shift in the so-called education to an erudition type situation that the matriarchy will put together, that's maybe patterned after something that used to be?
Yeah, the whole educational system is going to be revamped. Most of their systems is going to be to benefit the collective as opposed to the elites at the top.
Mm-hmm.
That's going back to the tribal ways. The way that they educate now, they don't educate you. What they do is indoctrinate you. It's a difference. The indoctrination effects can be shown in modern education with the conditions of how they're teaching the children and what's the focus: sex. Not just sex, the most perverse and corrupt sex.
Absolutely.
Right? Gender confusion is part of the new curriculum. So when we talk about a gay agenda, it was a group of homosexual priests in the 60s that hired a group of retired generals to tell them how they had to write them a report and tell them how to make homosexuality acceptable to the mainstream. And then they came out and began to finance that the same way they financed them generals to do the research. They begin to pay off corporations to incorporate the curriculum and indoctrinate the children, because they don't worry about the adults. If they can control the children, they got you for another generation. COVID exposed the fraud in the educational system when parents was forced to have to homeschool. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't as difficult as they thought it was going to be, and their children was happier. And a lot of them said, we're not sending our baby back to that because they're miserable. They know subconsciously that they're being programmed to do something that's contrary to their nature. And so they hate school. Some of them hate it to their own detriment and commit suicide because of it. But we don't want to address those issues. What's wrong with the educational system that's sending my child to school and making him jump off a bridge? We don't want to talk about it, because then we be held accountable for sending our children who can't function in a Skinner box given directions by a Pavlovian response system bell. This is all social engineering, because when they created modern education, they said the agenda is to create a nation of workers.
Right. That's true.
If you was a critical thinker and a practical problem solver, you don't have to work. You can create your own business from almost anything.
That's true.
Anything around you it can be used to survive. And a lot of people don't understand that. That's called living off the fat of the land. Go back to Fred Sanford. What was his source of income? He sold junk.
Junk. Junk. That's right.
Some of the junk dealers from over here where I'm at, they leave the junkyard in a pickup truck, go home, take a shower, get dressed, and get in a Mercedes and go to the uptown community where they fit right in. But during the work hours, you can't tell they not bums.
That's true. And I think that, most of what we have or what we need exist. It's just that they've introduced the fiat system as a way of I guess it's not even a barter, but forcing one into a level of servitude in order to get basic things that everyone should have a right to. You know what I mean? When you talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness or whatever. So we're talking about even the basic of basics that a lot of people are living without, because they've had this fiat system that they've created with this false, with this monopoly, so-called money, and people are scrambling trying to make it.
I call them prison tokens.
Well, okay, all right.
That's the same way as token. It's the same as tokens in prison. You can't spend them nowhere in the world. You can't leave the prison. You can't leave the prison with $1 million in prison tokens and get a dime.
Wow, that's true, and that's what we're that's what we're headed towards anyway. With the with the end of the fiat system, but we realize that it's not just the U.S. dollar, if you will, the U.S. fiat, but it's anything that's connected. Anybody else who has fiat, that's all affected. So that's why I think it's probably taking some time for some of these things to, when people have been waiting for the transition, it's going to happen. But I don't think it's going to happen as easily as we think, because it's not just, we're talking about the what is it? What do they call it? In Europe, they use the euro. We have the whatever, the USD. You've got the different currencies. The paper currencies are all fiats.
Yeah. So we go into a crypto system, electronic banking system, but the bank notes will be based on asset. That means if you have a $10 gold note, you will be able to redeem it for $10 in gold once again.
Okay.
Cash and carry, ain't no credit. You either can buy it or you can't.
Right.
Debt equals slavery.
True.
We know that they use the system of debt to enslave the people.
Right. Listen, right. I'm gonna stop us for a minute. We need to let those who just can't come in know what's going on. We are actually we started this first 45 minutes or so on YouTube and Facebook because we wanted you all to. We didn't have a real way to get you on our unfiltered channel, so we have a link in the description box. I want y'all to hear me good. We're going to end this part of the broadcast. There is a link in the description box, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. It says you must use this link to access the unfiltered version. We're going to be ending this portion in just a few minutes. And what we want you to do is to click back in on the link. You're basically going to see the same thing that you see, but what the difference is that we will not be on Facebook. We will not be on YouTube. If you want to share that link with anyone, please share it. They can get on. There's no registration required, but you do have to click the link to enter in. We have space for 10,000 folks. So you got You can tell everybody if you want, but we want to come back on and be a lot less guarded about what we say. At least Chief will be able to say, because we've talked about some things that we know will probably be a bit controversial, might kind of raise the ire, if you will, of the internet gods, and we just want to be able to be open and honest. So there's like 800 and so of you all right now. We can see, I can see now. I went down and said, so between Facebook and YouTube, if you go back, if you click off, go to the description of this show, the link is there. You click on, and we're going to be coming back on in just a few minutes. At 8:30 is when the broadcast will begin over there. As a matter of fact, as soon as we log off, Chief, we can actually log in and be over there, and then start letting people. And we don't have to let you in. Once you click, you're in. But we want you to know that the venue, so to speak, is changing, but the conversation is going to be continuing, but at another level. And so please bear with us. Over where? Okay, over where? Click the link that's in the description. If you're on YouTube, just click, when you look at YouTube, you see where you can click on more for description. And when you look down there, it tells you what's on tonight. And it also says you must click on this link. There's a hot link there. Facebook, there's a hot link there. Click that link, and it's going to bring you over to our private, what we call unfiltered channel, which means it's not on YouTube and it's not on Facebook. That's all. Other than that, nothing changes. You'll be able to hear and you'll be able to chat and so forth, but you just will not be on YouTube or Facebook if you want
to try to get that feminine energy harnessed to facilitate a cross-dressing positions. So they use your energy against you, and you don't know you surrendering it to them. Okay. It's like putting the dummy queen in the beehive, and they don't know that the dummy queen is the dummy queen. Then one day they figure it out. Then they all try to sting her ass.
So how did this role reversal, if you would say, start in this cycle of time, or what we know as time in this cycle?
If you look at the way things are, systems is how people govern themselves and others. These systems, the oldest ones that was functional with no war was matriarchy. The system of matriarchy was operated different than patriarchal domination rule. It was to bring the best out of every individual for the betterment of the collective, whereas patriarchy try to exalt one individual at the expense of all the rest of them. I don't care how good Michael Jordan was, he couldn't have won without the rest of his team being good enough to support him. Ain't no I in team.
That's right.
Right. So a team sport exalt a star player instead of understanding, like the Pistons, blue collar work ethic incorporated the defense as the anchor, which means everybody is the same amount of important now. Right? And they won championships with that. They changed the ideology and they fell apart.
Exactly.
As soon as they started making stars out of one player.
So explain the process of basically how did the system get usurped? Like, how did it get switched out? How did we go from matriarchy? Okay.
So this was what Cleopatra's fight was. In the last dynasty that fought against the Roman Empire. The fall of Cleopatra is your Jesus story. Right? But They don't tell you that Jesus is Isis and Cleopatra was the seated Isis of the day. Because that solves a whole lot of the historical anomaly. She was fighting patriarchs from Rome. But this is the continuation of a Babylonian assault on the world using sin magic. That's why they call everybody sinners in the Christian church. And the sin is the blood rites and the child sacrifice rituals that's being done behind the scenes, and you are reinforcing it in the forefront by turning a blind eye to it. You're changing the energy. They're using these pedophile priest cults to subjugate the people by ruining the children. They know exactly who to scar, how to scar them, and why they scarring them that way. Some of them, they just beat them into submission. They want to inflict what's called learned helplessness on them.